Hi, my name is Alessandro Gangelosi and that's a video tutorial coming from cgcookie.com for Max Cookie. We had a lot of people asking for tutorials and they asked for something related to electric bolt or electric spline, electric effect done with 3ds Max. There are a lot of ways to do it, and this is just the rough rendering done using the first way we talked about in this tutorial, and that's the result. It is really rough and really simple, but it is just done using a spline. One of the users sent us a scene it is working on with something similar to this way, so we had the pleasure to show how to do something more complex than its setup. And the first way to solve it using spline, and a really nice approach to have also sub-branches, because you know the main issue with the spline is that you can have just a linear spline and you can have no sub-branches over a spline. So let's close. You see that that's the scene, and we have the nice possibility to control also the end point of the electric bolt. It can be controlled by a dummy and it's animated. And you know, there we have all the controller and all the modifier that are controlling the spline, and the quality is controlled basically by the noise and the amount of vertices that are inside the spline. And you see that the really nice thing is that we have a main spline and we have some sub branches, 2 main and then 2 little sub branches, and you can do more sub branches. And if you like, you can also control it manually. Another nice approach, if you have time, is to add more details to have a more complex rendering. And if you like, you can also add an expression or a noise controller to this one, so you can move it manually, and you can also have the expressions or the noise controller to move it in a really randomic way. But that's the simple approach. There we see also how to control a spline with sub-branches. So you see that there, this is a simple spline, but as you see, we have a connection between some sub-spline. So we'll see how to solve the electric bolt problem in this way. We'll see how to have more details and how to control the rendering. And then we'll see also how to do a really simple compositing to obtain something more interesting. So let's start to create the scene and see how to approach to the problem. So let's start preparing the basic scene. So you know, our purpose is to prepare a really simple setup to create some electric effect in 3ds Max. You know that we have a lot of ways to do something like that. There are some custom plugins. We have the possibility to use, for example, particle flow. We can do it, for example, with thinking particles. So today I like to approach with the simplest way, and I mean with spline modeling. In a future tutorial, we'll see also how to do something like that using particle flow. So our basic need is to have an object that can create electric stuff based on a spline, and I like to control the first point, the start point, and the end point, and create something more complex. So from the front, we can decide that we need to create a spline. So let's imagine that our bolt will be something like that. So that's the line, and we can call it bolt. So our main purpose is that there we have the start point. So let's create a dummy there, just because later we'll use it to control the animation, and another point there. The first one will be called start point, and the second one will be the end point. Okay, our main problem is that we have to control the animation of the end point, and I like to create the electric simulation. So our first problem there is that I like to control the vertex there, but you know the main problem is that there we have just two vertices, the first one and the second one. So we need for sure to refine the spline. So we go at vertex level and we go to select the refine. I'm trying to have a nice amount of vertices. So let's go to put all those vertices there. Okay, and close the refine. So now we have a nice looking spline. And if we like to control the animation, we have to do something really simple. We have to select these vertices, and then we can use the modifier, the linked X-form. Then we have to pick the control objects and we select the endpoint. In this way, if we go to select, if we go to select this object, you see that we can control the animation there. So let's go to have maybe 200 frames, and we go to animate this one. So let's say that now it's there, and now it's there, now it's there, and like that. So you see that it's changing its position. We can do something more, but we'll see later how to do it. So the main problem we have actually is that we are moving just one vertex, and that's not nice. So we have to change the selection. Let's go there in the selection, and we say to use the sub-selection. Then we start to move, and you see that the color is saying that we are changing the selection. I like just to not move the first vertex, so we are still heading there. Okay, and then we can go there, and if we go to see the animation, you see that now we have a curvy animation because we are using the sub-selection to do it. Okay, it is working. Now I like to attach this one. So we go to have an edit spline. We select this vertex. We go to have another linked X4, and we pick this one. Then we can close with an edit spline again. In this way we have no sub-selection there. If we go, you see that it works, and we can control these vertices. And I mean, if we go to animate this one, for example, there, you see the problem is that there we have no sub-selection. So for the moment this one works just without animation for this one. So let's go to remove this key. Okay, now we need something more, and I mean we need let's remove the redraw acceleration there, and I mean we need to control the noise. To have the noise, we can do something really simple. We can select the vertices there, and let's go to have, for example, a selection for this part. For the moment we can try to have a soft selection, and we are going. Okay, then we go to have a noise. You see that the soft selection is removed, so we go to have a bigger selection and remove this one. go in the noise, and then edit spline again. Now we are free to use the fractal, and we can start changing the scale. You see that it starts to be similar to a bolt, and you see that it is animated because we are controlling the point there. We have the possibility to, let's go for example there, to control the scaling also on the other axis, and you see we are controlling over the other axis too, so it is a tridimensional noise. Okay, you see that it is working. We can have a little bit of roughness if we like to have more roughness, and I mean maybe 6 iteration can be enough. If we go to animate the noise, in this case you see that we have an automatic animation about the electric stuff. So if we go to play, you see that it's working like an electric bolt. We can have an higher frequency. In this case it will be faster, as you see. Okay, this is something that is starting to work, but we have some issues, some problem. First of all, it is just a line. So if we like to render it, we can, for example, there, we have, for example, there the renderable spline modifier, so we can control it directly from there, and we can decide how much it's big. We can go for something like that, and how much size it has over the various side. Let's go to have also the mapping coordinates to be sure that we have something to control the material if needed. And another thing we can do is that if we go there and we add a turbo smooth, just one layer, because you see if we go to have more layers, it is starting to be too much curvy. So we can go just to one, and you see that we have some kind of curvy effects over it. I mean, you can do it also with more point. It is you are able to decide. Then there we can go and see what happens if we have more roughness, you see, and we can have a little bit more iteration to have something more complex. Then you see that we have the turbo smooth, but it is nice because we have some curvy stuff and some smooth stuff, so we can work with iteration set to 1, and it is not bad because we have curvy and we have also some nice detail there. We can go always back there, and we can say to have more roughness. So that's the actual result. Obviously, you can have also the possibility to do it controlling more vertices. So in this case, you have to go inside the spline and refine with more detail the spline. So that's our actual result. You see that it is working nice, and this what we have and what we need to control manually the animation for an electric bolt. But I like to manage another problem. You know that actually we have just the main branch, but we can have sub-branch over a spline, over a bolt, and that's a problem. That's a problem because we can have no spline that has other spline with connected on the same vertices. So if we go to create a spline and we can make a test, I mean if we go there in the front and we go to create a line, let's imagine something like that. Then if we go to create another line, as you see, to create the subbranch of the spline, then we go there and we say to attach the other line. In this case, now this line is not connected, so we have the two vertices there. So if we select, let's remove the attach. If we select both and we say to fuse, and this way we are in the same position, now we are able to do the weld, as you know. But if we do the weld, there is no way to connect those vertices, and that's normal because 3ds Max is not able to have subbranch over the spline. So we have to solve this problem, because there we are not able to do subbranch, and in this way we have just really simple bolt. So there is a way to solve this issue, and I mean, we can pick this one and we can go there and use the bind. So if we select this one and bind to this point, you see that we have a position for the segments, and you see we can't move it because now it is bind there. So we are able to change the shape, but we have a subbranch. And I mean, if now we move this one, you see that the second spline is connected to the first one, and this way you see we can have subbranch. And I mean, if we go to create something like that, so a subbranch for the second branch there, we can do the same. So let's select this one, attach, and then remove the attach, select this one, and we say bind, and bind to this one. Now if you go there, you see that this one is connected and this one is connected too. So we have the subbranch connected to the main branch, and that's the best way to solve this issue. So we can have subbranch on a spline using the binding, and we can animate more complex stuff with the bolt effects. So we can do the same thing there. But to do something like that, we need to work and rework our spline. So I mean, we have there the noise. So at the linked form there, let's remove this one. We have first of all to let's go there and let's say that we have no turbo smooth, no renderable, no edit spline, and no noise and no selection. Okay, so we can see the right spline. Let's go to create a line, and let's say that we have this first subbranch there. Oh, sorry. Let's do it directly with line. Okay, something like that. And then another one there. Okay, and then one there and one there. Okay, so in this way you will be able to, if you like, to control both from there. Or if you don't like, you can mainly control the first one with the end point, and this other point will be controlled manually, automatically by the noise. So we can go there at this point. We can have an edit spline, and we go to have an attach. So we attach this one, this one, this one, and this one. Now we go at the sub vertex, the sub level. So the first one is this one, and we can go to have the bind. So let's connect to this point. Then we connect this one to this point, then this one there, and this one there. Okay, close the bind. So you see that that's the animation. You see that that's what we have actually, because the connection was done before. So something that can be done is to rework partially the animation. So I can say we can pick there and pick the spline and the spline and say detach. So okay, let's say shape 1. Nice. So if we set to off, you see that there we have no more stuff inside this one. We can go back to the line, and there we can have the attach with this one. So in this case, now if we go to see, you see that we have no more connection. So we have to go back to remove, to select those vertices. Then we have the connection. Okay, you see that now it is working. Then we have the edit spline, but obviously it needs to be removed. So there we have a new edit spline. Let's go to select this one. Then we have the linked text form with this one. So actually it is still working nice. Then we have the edit spline to have this one, but obviously we have no history for the other vertices. So we have to remove it and use another edit spline. Now we can select all the, let's go to select all the vertices, but this one will be not selected and this one will be not selected. Then we have the noise. And you see that now it is again working as a noise. We have just a problem, obviously, and I mean, you see we have the problem with the binding. So we have a disconnection where we have the noise. So something that can be done is, let's remove there, and in the edit spline we can try to have no noise for this one. And we have to remove also the others because we need to have linear animation there over the two segments. So if now we go there, you see that we have the two sub-branches connected. Obviously there we'll have no noises. That's the worst problem we can have, but you know, it is something that is not so bad because we have a nice solution. So if we go there inside the main viewport, you see that we have this kind of effects. Okay, obviously if you have more points it will be more stable. Then let's set this one to close the selection. Then we have the renderable spline. And then we have the super smooth. And in this way you see that we have less problem. Obviously the noise can be bigger over some axis. Let's see the final result. So you see we can have more noises and more ruggedness. So you see we have more chaotic animation and the scaling can be more little. Obviously depending on the scaling and depending on the I mean how much detail we have, you will be able to obtain something more complex or less complex. So you see in this way it's not bad. If you have more point at the beginning, you will obtain something more interesting, but you know, that's a nice solution. So let's save, and now we can get to a material. The material can be really simple, so we can use the standard material for the standard rendering engine, it's not a problem. And we can have an RGB, or you can use also a gradient, it's not a problem. So you can have, for example, let's go to have a shaded, and let's go near to see how this is looking. Obviously you see that there we have some kind of problem due to the turbo smooth, but obviously if you change the weight of vertices, you will obtain a better result, but it's not our main issue actually. Let's call it bold. We go to select it, and we can assign. Then there we can have a gradient. Let's go for a gradient ramp, and you see that's the map. So let's see the map there. Let's say that we use the white color there, and we use maybe the black color there. We can go to rotate this one to see how this is working. So you see that there we have, for example, the white on this part, and we have the other stuff there. So it's something we can use to have different coloring, but you know, it can be used also on the other axis, so it depends on the stuff you are trying to achieve. And we can have something between, you see the really clear bluish, or you can use obviously the color you like, it's not a problem. So that's our bolt actually. Let's zoom back. And move it there. So that's our actual result. Let's save and render just one frame to see what we are obtaining. Let's go for 100. So let's set a different resolution. Let's go for 1720. Let's see in the viewport if we see everything with a show save frame. And let's go to have a self-illumination over the material 100%, and let's render. That's the actual result. We can render a little bit more little. Let's go for 900. Okay, that's the render. Obviously, again, I mean, if you like to have more detail, you have just to put more details over the vertices, because you see more vertices, because you see, for example, there with an higher noise, we can have a little bit of problems. Let's see if we can manage it with a more little scaling. We should be able to have no so strange stuff. Okay. And again, if you have there more sub-samples, sub-steps for the vertices, you will have a more precise look. But it is nice to see how it works. So save, and we can render the frames and see what happens if we have, for example, a little compositing, something not so complex. So I will go to render all the frames in the folder where we are working. Let's call it bolt, and we call it bolt. We can use also the JPEG in this case, because we don't care about the frame quality. So if we render the clip will be really fast, and then we see something done in the compositing to see how the look can be changed to obtain something more realistic. Okay, the render is over. We can go inside Fusion, and let's load with the right mouse button and then add tool input output loader, and we go to load the both. Okay, we'll have 200 frames. If we go to see the preview, you see that's something like that. Obviously, to change the animation, you have just to change the noise. So everything can be controlled with the noise. Okay, and obviously the face and the animation, everything can be controlled and tweaked like you prefer. So now let's go to use, for example, a blur, glow. And you see that we are starting to have the glow over the clip. We can decide how much. That's the glow side. So let's start with something really little. So that's without and that's with. Then we go for another glow. This one will be bigger. Let's go for a bigger size, a higher energy there, and I like to have more bluish. Let's go to remove a little bit of red, and then we can have more little sides and less power. So in this case, you see that that's the look. It's better than before. We can have another glow just to have a little bit more energy over, and you see that it's starting to be nicer than before. You can decide how much it needs to be visible. So you see we can have more energy or less energy depending on the stuff you are trying to achieve. In this case, if we go to render this one, I can save the project. So you have it too, and then let's go back there and let's try to see in playing, and you see that we have something. Again, I mean, the quality now is just controlled by the noise and the amount of subsegment you have over your spline. So you can just manage this parameter to obtain something different. That's just a low resolution test, but you know, you can control it as you like and as you prefer without problems, and you have complete control over the animation for the endpoint. Okay, that's nice. Okay, so it was just an introduction to electric effects, and we saw how to solve the problem with the spline, and we saw how to do it using the binding to have sub-branches over a spline and over the bolt. There are other ways to create something like that, you know, for example with particles and with external plugin. But that's the most simple, and it is not bad. You have a nice control, and it is really fast to be done for the setup and also for the rendering. So for the moment that's all, and I hope to see you back on Max Cookie to check for new tutorial coming from cgcookie.com. Bye.